Hey, what up, YouTube? This is the Thrift Shop Hustler here. Going to make another video today on the Get to Know Your Stuff series. Going to do, today's going to be, we're going to have a talk on slot cars. Some of you might know what slot cars are. They're basically little cars that have motors in them, and you basically put it on a track, and electricity goes through the track into little feelers that are underneath the car and powers a motor, and it goes along a track with a little trigger thing you press. So that's a slot car, and usually you can find these in a lot of different places. So those that are new to the channel, my name's Chris. I live in Southern California. I've been a reseller for almost 30 years. Started with baseball cards and collectibles, and have sold at swap meets and flea markets and things, and that's where I usually got my start. That's how I got to know how to sell and how to read people, and all that stuff. I learned that at a very, very early age, and it morphed into other things. I ran eBay stores for a couple major hobby shops in the area, and have a pretty good history on eBay stuff. I was even doing stuff before eBay. So welcome to the channel. That's who I am, and let's get right into it. So also, I want to thank everyone who's new to the channel and who have subscribed, and hopefully you guys can get a little bit of value out of this. I know that a lot of people aren't into collectibles. I know a good amount of people are into shoes and clothes and stuff, and I'm really no good at that. So these little videos can definitely help you out when you're out there and about. The 30 years that I've been doing this allowed me to go wide as far as what I know, so hopefully this will help you guys when you're out and about. So let's get into it. This looks like a photo from the old Batman series, and this is a 1/32 scale track. As you can see, it has 4 lanes, and this thing's huge. And actually, I built a track like this in Burbank in the early 2000s, and to my knowledge, it was one of the biggest tracks in Southern California, and I can actually show you a little clip of that. I was on a show called Shifting Gears. It was kind of like a reality show. They did one episode on me, but this is the beginning of it.
First up, a visit to our auto makeover participant, Chris Avalos. Chris has one of the coolest jobs around.
So I wanted to add, this is one of the places that I did the eBay store for. They sold die-cast cars. And before this, I knew about Hot Wheels and things like this, but working at the store for like 3 years and doing their eBay stuff, I learned so much as far as the diecast world, and there's lots of money to be made with that. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
He works at a model car shop in Burbank, California, which means he gets to spend a lot of time playing with one of my favorite toys.
All right, so here's the track. This thing was insane to make. It took maybe about a month and a half to make. It was a 4-lane. I want to say this one was Scale Electrics. It wasn't a Carrera track, and I had to actually learn about like electricity and wiring and everything just putting this thing together. So, and also like the hydrocal to make like the all these little mountains and these little passes, that because this thing goes underneath and goes out through here, and that was one of the hardest things. And in designing it, the cars would always get stuck in here, so it was hard to like be standing in this area, because all you could do is really stand here, and then we had these little grabbers that would try to get up into this. So so anyways, that's a little bit of history about me. Enough about me. Let's get into slot cars. That's what you guys really want to see. And so to me, I want to break up the slot car thing into 3 basic categories. The 3 basic categories for me when you're dealing with slot cars are: you got the vintage, you got the 80s stuff, 70s, 80s, and then you got the current day stuff, which all different things has their value. And let's take a look at the first stuff. Vintage, if you go into eBay and put vintage slot car and then sort by highest price, you can see a lot of this stuff. A lot of the older brands are called Scale Electric. There's also Aurora is a really, really popular brand. And you can see by just looking at this thing that, it looks old just by looking at this box right here. As you can see, this one went for $1,500. And where did it go? There it is. And this one had the tires and the box and everything. Now, finding something like this high end is going to be super rare. The stuff that you're going to find is probably going to be a little beat up, and they're kind of be a little larger. I think the old ones are one. See, this says it's 124 scale, which is pretty big. So they're about like 6 inches long. And how you can tell usually by the older ones is, I think this one's probably a good one to look at. A lot of the older ones have like these metal chassis. As you can see, they're like usually made out of metal in the bottoms. This one happens to be a drag one. This one's like a specialty one. Let me see here. I should have prepped this with a good photo. Yeah, sometimes they'll have these like metal chassis, and you can see that. Now, for the most part, they're never dated. But you can tell by just looking at them that if they appear to look like they have some age to them, they're probably going to be the older ones. And of course, I think there's like company marks on the bottom of them so that you can at least say like what it is. And of course, do your research. I mean, look at this thing. This was just a shell that was in its box that went for almost $400. So definitely take a look out for that. Vintage stuff, you're gonna rarely find this kind of stuff, to be honest. The old 60s and 50s stuff, because basically in the 50s and the 60s, slot cars were pretty popular, and a lot of this stuff honestly got. Oh, here's a good example of what I was talking about. So like you'll usually see these chassis that have these little weird little wheels in the front, and that's what it looks like on the bottom. They're like they almost look like metal, like aluminum metal. This one happens to have all the connections and everything. I think that's why this one went for so much, and it's super clean. So be on the lookout for that stuff. You want to try to pick this stuff up as cheap as you can. Like a lot of this stuff is going to be hit and miss. You want to get stuff that's like usually complete together and pretty mint. Something that's in the box is definitely going to be a plus. As you can see, some of these go for hundreds of dollars. When you go to garage sales, when I usually find the old vintage stuff, like look at this. This is just like a pile of old stuff right here. You're usually going to find like stuff in like this. There'd just be like in a box, and there'll be a pile of things. And like right now, if you just looked at this, you'd see like a lot of this stuff looks like it's like it's got age to it. This white body looks like it's a newer one or something that's being refurbished. But anyways, you can see how like industrial looking the chassis are on the bottom. They look very aged, and looks like they have tons of metal components. A lot of the new stuff is made out of plastic. So this is like the vintage era, 50s, 60s. Some people call vintage stuff from the 80s vintage, which is understandable because it is kind of vintage, I guess. I guess we're that old now. And we'll get into that next. So you can call the 80s stuff vintage too, but I like to break slot car stuff into 3 categories, and this is going to be the first category. So keep an eye out for that if you find slot cars that are in good shape and you want to get them at a good price, you can. Like I said, do your research. It's going to be pretty hard to do your research because someone that's not familiar with cars isn't going to know that this looking car is a chaparral. You know, this style, and so it's going to be hard to kind of like, oh, that's a chaparral, that's what I should do a keyword. But if you do vintage slot cars, like I said, if you can find, like, let's say you come across something like this at a yard sale for like $5, you know, go ahead and get it, because you can definitely sell, you know, this stuff as a part and do an auction for that. So anyways, that is vintage stuff. We basically kind of, you know, glossed over this real quick. You know, there's every subject will go super deep, but you know, this is pretty much the basis of checking out vintage stuff. So next up is, why is it going there? That is not that. Okay, so the next up is the 80s stuff, early 90s stuff. And what you can tell real quick, the difference between vintage and 80s stuff is the cars are going to be as big as Hot Wheels. They're actually they're going to actually look like kind of like Hot Wheels too. And of course, the tracks are smaller. I think I want to say that it's HO scale, and anyone that knows who collects trains will understand what I'm talking about. HO scale. As you can see, we got this great sideways photo. And as you can see, Tyco, anyone who was in the 80s knows Tyco. They made a ton of stuff like this, a lot of slot car stuff. Slot cars became popular again in the early to mid 80s, and Tyco came out with a bunch of stuff. AFX too. So always look out for these little tiny cars. If you can find them in the packages, like sometimes I'll even come across these at like estate sales and garage sales in a box or something, because people don't even think that these little cars aren't going to be worth anything, because sometimes they're even hard to pick up. Oh, this is actually a good photo to show what the cars look like compared to the other slot cars. Everything's self-contained, and they have like a shell, like a plastic shell, in this, and you just pull on the sides and it pops right out. And the difference is everything is powered by these little uh, copper pegs right here, and they're springy, so they sit on the track, and the wheels are kind of like spongy looking. A lot of these cars didn't have silicone wheels; they were like almost like these spongy rubber wheels, and so that's what those look like. And as you can see, we'll go back a little bit here. Some of these older ones, I mean, look at this. This one went for $500. You can easily find these at swap meets and stuff like this for like $2. I found this kind of stuff before at garage sales. And you're usually, to be honest, you're usually going to be finding like collections like like this, where everything's going to be like in a pile. And as you can see, they look like they're about the size of Hot Wheels. I wonder if they have a photo of them upside down. That would be nice. Do they? No. But see, this whole there's 47 of these that went for 405. That's like almost $10 each. I wouldn't have sold this like this. I probably would have parted these out and like put maybe like 9.99 with a bid and see how high, because some of these probably would have went for 20 or $30. And another thing I want to add is you're going to find a lot of sets. Let me see if I could find something that's a set. And what I mean by a set is like it's going to be in a box like this. This is what you're mostly going to find, to be honest. You're going to find just a box with like parts and stuff in it. And you're never going to know if it's complete unless you have the instructions. You can go through it like Legos, piece by piece. A lot of the times you can buy these sets for like $5 or $10 and just sell the cars and then sell the parts. This one happens to be an anomaly, because this electric truck one is like a super rare one to find, and it looks like it even has like other pieces and things that go with it that are not with that weren't supposed to be with the set. There's a lot of extra stuff in there, and everything looks pretty clean. So this is kind of an anomaly. You can definitely part a lot of this stuff out. See, like this, you're gonna usually find stuff like this. Like this, these are old AFX. Aurora is an old thing. I probably wouldn't get too excited if I saw these, just because these are the smaller ones. But if like you can get this whole thing for like $20 or something like that, you should buy it, and then you can definitely part it out. See, like look at this one. This one's for $81. It's like $20 a set. So like you just have to do your research, because some of these really don't go for that much, but some of them do. So if you can get them at a good price. And not all Tyco stuff is going to be worth anything, because someone's going to see Tyco and they're going to get all excited. So like $40 plus 20 shipping on this. There's a lot. You're going to find a lot of this stuff like this. This one happens to be a harder one to find. Quads. So that's pretty much 80s stuff. 80s stuff and early 90s stuff is going to be the size of a Hot Wheel. And as you can see, some of the ones that are packaged up still demand high cash. Actually, I had this one when I was a kid. This is like from 1986. It says 1988. I could have been 8 when this came out. I remember having this exact one, actually. How funny. This one was really fun because it like you can put it up the wall. and the magnets were so strong on this, when it would turn this corner, it would go up the wall. And like it's funny because it says like night glow, and you go, oh, it's so amazing, but all it was is glow in the dark stickers and stuff. It really didn't glow um, as awesome as it should, but it was still fun. So that's that. We got your vintage, we got your 80s stuff that you're familiar with now. And now we're going to go to modern day stuff. Modern day stuff is like early 2000s to now. You're going to see these are 1/32 scale, so they're probably about 5 inches long. Usually there's Scale Electrics, there's also Carrera, Fly, Nyko. You're going to find more Carrera stuff than anything, but as you can see, like I don't want to do a high bid on this one, or a sort by high, because you're going to get a lot of vintage stuff, because there's a vintage 1/32 stuff too. But as you can see, like if you can find this stuff at a really good price, here's some Dale Earnhardt things, and you're going to find a lot of these sets more or less nowadays. You're also, if you're lucky to find like these boxed ones that are like, still in the box and brand new and haven't been used. This is actually a really cool car. Yeah, we used to sell tons of these when I worked at the hobby shop. We used to people would come and they would just buy these like crazy. And you can kind of modify them. You can swap out the motors and stuff. Oh, actually, that brings up a good thing that I wanted to mention. So you're like, oh, how do I know if these work if I buy them? You can take a 9-volt battery. Let me see if they have. Let me see if they have something on that. You take a 9-volt battery, and you can stick it to the little terminals that are underneath, and it'll power it on. And you just flip the positive and negative on the battery. And you can basically power it on here. Oh, here we go. This is what I'm saying. So like if you just take a 9-volt battery and you just put it on the little things. Usually the motors are in the back. What is this guy doing? This is a horror. You know what? I should make a video of this, kind of showing this, how this is. As you can see, you just put it on the terminals, and you can see the cars will go forward on one way, and if you flip the battery, it'll go backwards in another way. So that's a good way to test it if the motor's good, because sometimes you'll get slot cars that the motors are burnt out, and that's usually not good. So that's pretty much it on slot car stuff. If you have a question, please leave it in the comments below. Keep your eye out for slot car stuff. Oh, I actually wanted to show you one more thing. There's actually, Carrera makes the smaller ones also. It's called Carrera Go. And you see a Carrera Go competition set. You're going to find a lot of this stuff too at garage sales. These are like the Hot Wheels sized ones that are current day. Yeah, that's not a good example. And you can seriously sell just the pieces to this stuff and still make good money. Because if you can get the set for like $10, $20, you can part them out. I've parted out sets like this before. I mean, look at this. This is like a huge lot. This looks like maybe someone took, and they have it all listed here. You see 32 curves. And to wash this stuff, if it looks like it's a little dirty, you can just take like a damp paper towel and maybe a little bit of Windex, and you can totally clean these off, and they'll clean up really well. So actually take a look out for that. If you might think, oh, look, I come across some 80s stuff because it's smaller Hot Wheels stuff, be on the lookout for that some of them are these Carrera Goes, and they're still smaller ones. There's still good money to this stuff. You're usually not going to get good money by selling sets unless it's a limited edition set, and they did make limited edition sets like this one right here. But you're going to make your money on these ones by parting stuff out. So keep a lookout for that. So everyone, thank you for watching. I hope I enlightened you a little bit about slot cars. We didn't go like super deep into all the details that you need to know, but I think we pretty much covered a lot of the things that you should look out for. Like I said a minute ago, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. And let me know if you guys come across slot car stuff in your area. I live in Southern California, so this is we kind of live in a car culture kind of environment. So there's a lot of this kind of stuff around. And I want to appreciate everyone's for your new subscriptions. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, you find it was helpful to you in any way, please click the like button and share it with a friend. And I really appreciate everyone for all your support. And check out all my social media links below if you want to check out other stuff I'm doing. I'm on Instagram. I post photos of a lot of different finds that I do, and I'm getting into Amazon merch, so you can see a lot of my t-shirt designs and stuff like that. So appreciate it, everyone. Have a good day.